Are you afraid? Have you felt the cold caress of terror on your neck? Does its ominous presence dance around your lantern light? It should, as the butcher awaits, just beyond the outskirts of our settlement. As always, its arrival is unannounced. Its motives are unknown beyond mere destruction. And believe me when I say, you are not prepared. But if you happen to survive, let this be the last time you are caught unaware, and let your fear grow, just so that you can be sure of that. Fear is a powerful tool that can protect us and destroy us. They say there once was a man so full of fear and afraid of the world that he hid his face behind a mask. Over time, as he ran from that terror, his cowardice was transformed into rage, and what was previously human became monster. With nothing left but pure fury, he roamed the nights and attacked, mindlessly stealing the faces of all of his victims. Now, that man is known only as the Butcher, and its existence asks so many questions of our world and of ourselves. But for now, the only question worth asking is, are you afraid? You once feared the white lions, but years of hunting has made you quite comfortable. As we increased our weapons and armor, improved our skills and strength, the younger, weaker lions stopped posing a real threat. That's when you stopped being afraid. And that's when you allowed death to approach. And now it's just outside, wielding 2 cleavers, and wrapped in a fur cloak tangled with old lanterns. The Butcher, in its chaos and unpredictability, with its unceremonious arrival, may teach us the greatest lesson we'll ever learn. We can never stop striving to be better, for there are far more things wandering around in the darkness, and an unknowable clock ticks down until their arrival. This inevitable threat brings true meaning and motivation to our lives. We could hunt our quarries. We could survive and grow comfortable, feasting on the weaker of the beasts. And with that, there would come a point in which progress in our understanding, in our innovations, would be unimportant. We could maintain that way of life forever. But the unexpected threats out there mean we can never stop or slow down. For tomorrow may come a monster more powerful than we've ever encountered, and it could be our end. So the fear of hunting more powerful creatures must be overcome, for there is always something greater to fear. And if we don't make the choice, then the choice will be made for us, and we must strive to improve at any cost. Otherwise, the cost will be everything. The Butcher could not live with that fear, and now all that's left of its former self is rage. However, unlike anything you fought before, the Butcher is still human in appearance. Fighting a creature, hunting for food and survival is one thing, but a showdown with what is, or once was, human is mentally challenging. Especially so when his very presence torments you with the death of fellow survivors. Upon its back hangs a giant cape and dozens of survivors' lanterns, their light dimmed and obscured by the skin of human faces, stretched over the glass casing. The Butcher also possesses a giant figure, a hulking mass of flesh compounded by piles of armor and topped by a beast-like helm with giant tusks. Despite layers upon layers of armor, further burying the Butcher's hidden humanity, he can still rain blows down with great speed. And as that giant figure standing over you swings unrelentingly, you'll remember true fear. And that's when the fight for survival will really begin. But what knowledge can I impart that may prepare you for your conflict? How about we start at the core of what the Butcher really is, or what's left of the man that once was? You may not believe me, but I have seen the Butcher decapitated, his head cut clean from his shoulders. Yet its body did not fall. It just stood there, unmoving, seemingly dead, but no one daring to approach. If you ever slice off a piece of the Butcher yourself, you may discover how this could happen, as its still writhing flesh moves in your hands. What was previously human seems to have been replaced, mutated by some living organism, a parasite, a cancer. Who knows? But it is clear it is not so much the flesh of the butcher, but instead that the butcher is made up of this thing. We may come closer to the truth on this by studying the butcher's movements. For there is extreme consistency in the butcher, especially so for a creature so overcome by rage. His steps are rhythmic. As he walks, you can hear the rattle of chains and chainmail and the clanking of metal pendants with mesmerizing precision. He always moves at the same pace. His cleavers swing in time. There's something oddly clockwork to his existence, and it can drive you insane as his approaching figure moves with unnerving calmness to the beating of your heart, and perhaps exactly to the beating of the butcher's own heart. You can imagine the butcher is nothing but living flesh. The butcher's movements are nothing more than muscles contracting with the pressure of blood pumping in and out, in sync to the steady beating heart. Even as it begins to attack with heavy cleavers that attempt to hack, hew, and carve you into pieces, you'll find the cleaver's wild movements lack accuracy, as if made without thought, but instead are instinctual automatic movements synchronized to that pulsating blood. Whilst this makes them easier to evade, the ferocity and frequency means that you can only dodge them for so long. Eventually you will take a hit, and when he hits with force and wounds deep, causing you to lose a lot of blood. There's a good reason he's called the butcher after all, so don't forget your bandages. And when the butcher is really ready to do damage, you may catch the rhythmic pattern of his breathing, and as if the whole world stops moving, you'll feel transported to a new plane of existence, where it's just you and him. For the few who ever survived this, they refer to it as Hack City. They say the only way to survive is to fall entirely in sync with the butcher's moves, march to his drum, and weave between the unceasing flurry of blows. This flow state may not only save your life, but awaken you to a power you never knew you possessed. Turning the butcher's own tricks against him may give you a boost, but it won't entirely turn the tables. As your own blows attempt to cut through his thick armor and occasionally pierce to the flesh below, you'll notice there's little in the way of damage done to the butcher. Whereas your previous quarries have reacted to your wounds, sometimes running away, sometimes being deterred from responding at all, the butcher does not appear to feel a thing, and will simply take advantage of the fact that you're within striking distance. The butcher's movements, although limited in their variety and predictable in their focus, lack logical progression, and you'll commonly find yourself disoriented and swinging blindly, not knowing exactly what you'll collide with. It could be a body part, or it could easily be a cleaver, a large chunk of iron that could barely be called a weapon, sending reverberations up your arm as its unmoving mass prepares for another strike. Frailer weapons will fare worst of all and shatter upon collision with aspects of the butcher's armor. Without precision, you'll be praying for a lucky shot, but what are you hoping to hit? The butcher has very few weak points, other than perhaps the scrag of the neck, which seems more exposed than any other. I have mentioned the butcher's been beheaded before, and it was only from a precise blow to the neck that was possible. Even if you failed to land a death blow, a mighty strike to the neck would be enough to do additional damage, potentially even to shock the walking corpse of a foe. The only other location where a precise blow has relevance is the butcher's breastplate. Adorned with lanterns, an unfortunate strike may cause one to crack and explode in your face, blinding you and knocking you to the ground. However, the butcher's strange obsession with lanterns can have unpredictable results. If it strikes down one of your party, it will steal their lantern in their face, only further encouraging and motivating its violent attacks. On the other hand, to take away one of those dreaded trophies can not only give a morale boost to all those left standing, but potentially cause a strong reaction from the butcher as well. Recognizing the loss of his prize, the scream of the butcher, echoing within his metal shell, seems to come from deep within a place of unsatiated hunger to kill, before giving way to a contrasting, bellowing voice, as if fighting a being in two states of existence. His scream gives way to an intimidating roar. Then you'll notice it locking eyes with the lantern at your waist, as if it calls directly to the butcher. Suddenly, you're the focus of its lantern frenzy. This obsession will give the butcher greater ferocity, but he will act as if everything else in the world is irrelevant. If you become the focus of this craze, almost certainly, you are dead. There's always the option of making a noble sacrifice, fleeing into the darkness, leading the butcher away from everything you know and love, sparing them a while. But with all your equipment lost to the darkness as you run, would you just be dooming them to a delayed death? So you might as well stand your ground and fight. The battle has been wearing on. The butcher, showing no signs, must be growing weaker, yet the rhythmic onslaught continues. No matter how far you run, the butcher is able to catch up, as its pulsating body never tires, covering twice the ground you can in the same time. You're simply swapping blows. You've lost yourself to the rhythm and forgotten every piece of skill and strategy you knew. It's simply a case of wild fury. You're not afraid anymore, right? But you're so close to the butcher now. The screaming faces of prior victims glow with forbidden lantern light and loom over you, tormenting you with your destiny. The longer you stand beneath their orange radiance, the weaker you feel, as if these lanterns are feeding off of your own life force, as if manipulating a network of lanterns to feed their own hunger. This is not as crazy as it sounds. The butcher's obsession with lanterns, the way they weaken you with every passing second you are nearby, and then the butcher's gone, disappearing in a flash as the lanterns intensify before slipping into darkness, only for it to reappear behind you as if from the glow of your own lantern, catching you by surprise and killing you before you have a chance to react. Another trophy for his collection. That's what will happen if you forget the fear. As your blows land, as you thrust sword and arrow into its flesh and see no reaction and no change in behavior, you may start to believe the butcher is invincible. But it can be stopped, so don't lose yourself to rage. Remember the fear and use it. Eventually, you'll see a crack in the armor. You'll feel there is something in the butcher still akin to fear as you surround it and see it finally respond to your actions. It will thrash wildly, harm everyone in close proximity, and send them flying back. But it will respond to your efforts, and you'll catch a glimpse of victory, even when so close to defeat, as it seeks revenge. Despite his heavy boots kicking you continuously as you're on the ground, and its attempts to crush your skull with the giant metallic jaws on its helm, you'll know the fear that makes you run from that certain decapitation. That deep fear still lingers within the butcher as well. And it should be afraid of you, for you've overcome what it could not, and retained in your victory your humanity, or at least most of it. And emerging victorious, what prizes should you hope to claim before the butcher flees into the darkness? If you're acclimatized well enough to the dark, deadly world, the blood that stains the butcher's cleavers won't cause you any discomfort, and they're powerful weapons to wield. Your only other likely reward would be to snatch the butcher's mask. But whether or not to wear it. Did it really transform a man into the butcher by turning fear into rage? Or was it simply a symbolic gesture, hiding his humanity before he ultimately lost his sanity? If it truly consumed everything that was individual and left just rage, is the obsession with skin and flesh simply a lasting artifact of what once was? A focal point that formed a habit? Or is there still sentience behind that mask that knows what it's doing? Depending on what you believe, will give you your answer. But wearing the mask caused one man to forsake his humanity and kill many people like yourself. The fear it strikes in the hearts of friends and loved ones alone should be good enough reason not to wear it. But it scares you to look at it as well. So much in this world scares you. I do wonder what it is like to feel no fear at all. Don't you?